Hello guys, Contrarian dude here, and I just found this 8 values test. I haven't done it. I'm going to be doing it with you first time right here now. Thought I'd go through it and see what we can see. Usually these tests, the questions are a little bit silly in that they always forget to say by who. They might say something like, what's a good example? Should traditional values be taught to your children? It's like by a caring parent or a parent who wants to teach them, and the answer is yes. But should the state teach it? The answer is no, and they rarely have that nuance in it. But we'll go ahead and give it a go and see how well it gets me. You'll be presented with a series of statements. For each one, click the button. Got it. Okay, question 1 of 70. Okay, buckle in. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. No, oppression by corporations is of no concern. Corporations use governments to oppress us, but without the government's free markets will take away the consumer has the power in their ability to take away the power of the corporations. The corporations are beholden to consumers. Question 2, it is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Going through this very quickly, we're between strongly disagree and disagree. I'll go strongly disagree. That's not true. The freer the market's the freer the people. That's agreed. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. Yes, of course it is. The reason is an unbalanced budget simply means you're providing welfare to citizens of today and putting it on the backs of those recipients' children. If you do not have a balanced budget today, what that means is the quality of life of generations in the future will be lower. So yes, agree. Publicly funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it to the free market. No, publicly funded research gives you stupid things like gender studies and everything else. It's absolutely moronic. If it's free market research, then someone is investing their money hoping to find something that is useful in which they will get a return on it. The market has dictated that the market's research is far better. So publicly funded research is more beneficial? Negative. International trade is beneficial, of course. From each according, no, I don't even need to read the rest of that nonsense. It would be best if social programs were abolished in favor of private charity. That would be best, there's no question about that. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide, no. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. Of course it is. It was legitimately earned, taxes were paid on it, it was passed on to their children. If they're suggesting that we take away inheritance, you would see a massive boom in the cocaine and hooker industry. I know when I'm hitting 70, 80 years old and I got a bunch of money in the bank that I can't leave to my children, hookers and blow, that's where it would go. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth, of course. Public utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. I'll do a slight disagree. It's not that they should be. No, just slightly disagree. Excessive government intervention is the threat to an economy, absolutely. Those with a greater ability to pay should receive better healthcare. I don't like the word should. Those with the ability to purchase better healthcare should get a better healthcare. Same way those who have the ability to purchase a nicer house get to live in a nicer house. I will go strongly agree. Quality education is a right of all people. No such thing as positive rights. So quality education is a right of all people. The ability to pursue quality education is a right of all people, but quality education is not. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. Moronic. The United Nations should be abolished. Abolished. Abolished implies there is some power looking over the top of it doing the abolishing. The United Nations should be left by just the United States should leave the United Nations. That would be what I strongly agree with. So the United Nations should be abolished. So strongly agree. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. Of course. I support regional unions such as the European Union. It's a union. If people choose to be, I don't think it was a good thing for the European nations to be part of the EU, but if people choose to be part of unions, it's okay. But Really, what's better, the smaller nation states, the better. You want more power at a more local level. So I think what they're trying to get at there is for me to disagree. It is important to maintain national sovereignty. Yes, I believe so. From international ruling bodies, yes. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. A united world government, no, just strongly disagree. It is more important to retain peaceful relations than to further our strength. Well, no, you sound like a cuck. It's not more important to have peaceful relations is a very worthy goal, but it's the type of thing that you achieve through strength. You can't, if you pursue peace, you end up just being a pleaser and you lose yourself and it goes downhill from there. Through strength, you can keep peace. So I'll go ahead and strongly disagree with that. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. No, wars need to be justified to your citizens, the same way every decision needs to be justified to your citizens. Your citizens are the government's employers. That's where the power should be vested. So wars do not need to be justified. Agreed. Military spending is a waste of money. No, not true. International aid is a waste of money. It is in its current iteration, and the phrase international aid suggests that this is by government. If I choose to give money to international aid, it's not international aid by definition. It just turns out that it is, and it turns out if government does it, it's far more likely to be a waste of money. And its current iteration, it's actually detrimental. The money doesn't go to the people. It goes to the bureaucracies and the governments of other countries to strengthen those bureaucracies and enslave those people further. Again, I think what they're trying to get at is that I should strongly disagree. No, it's a waste of money. I should strongly agree with this. My nation is great. I'm Australian born, currently living in the United States, legally of course. And both those countries are pretty great. Certainly by world standards, they're pretty damn great. And the reason they're great is the ideas and beliefs held in the hearts and minds of the majority of those citizens are pretty damn good beliefs that yield great results. Research should be conducted on an international scale. What do you mean should be? It can be. Certain research would be good on that scale. Certain research would be good on that scale. That's from where I'm guessing the quiz is coming from. I should say disagree or strongly disagree, but it's poorly worded. I'll just go neutral. Government should be accountable to the international community. No, we've already discussed this. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. When protesting. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. So the acceptable is suggesting morally acceptable. I would suggest it's foolhardy to, in most cases, to go up against a government with an attempted violent coup. You're much better off doing it with peaceful means. But acceptable suggests a moral code. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, they're authoritarian, they are by definition initiating the aggression. So it's not unacceptable, but it is unwise. And I certainly wouldn't advocate it. Even when protesting authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. Small disagree. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. Well, I am an atheist, but let's call atheism a religious value. Should it be spread as much as possible? Any good values should be spread. Again, the should suggests, it's a political quiz, so it's suggesting by government or not by government. No, I should, by the power of persuasion and good example, any values that I hold that are good, I will be spread and I should spread. But should I send a military over to inflict democracy or any other kind of value on someone else? No. So I'm going to go ahead and say disagree. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. Now again, the should You hope that they will be taken up because our values have proven to be great. Our values have provided for a much higher standard of living in the West than anywhere else in the world. So you hope for their sake they choose to adopt our values, but should they be spread as a moral imperative? No. It is very important to maintain law and order. That is important. Yes, it makes society, makes life a lot easier. There's no comparison though. At the expense of what? At the expense of freedom? No. But is it important to maintain law and order? Yes. The general populace makes poor decisions. No, I think they make good decisions and bad decisions. They voted for Obama. That was a poor decision. So, no, I'm just going to go neutral on this. Victimless crimes such as drug use should not be crimes at all. Strongly agree. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from terrorism. This is a bit of a tough one. There are so many other ways to fix terrorism that we do not need to sacrifice civil liberties. That's in the current state of the world today. However, is it possible to imagine a scenario whereby a strictness of civil liberties, even though all the dangers that brings with it, is a beneficial thing? It's possible. It's going to be unwise in almost every instance, but it's possible. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from terrorism. I'm going to go a slight disagree. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. No, it's not. Kind of, yeah. The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. Ooh. We just ANCAP? Are we ANCAP or are we just libertarians? The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. I'm somewhere in between agree or strongly agree here. It is a threat, but it's also a protector. If I'm an ANCAP, I've got to go strongly agree. If I'm a libertarian, I've got to go agree. I think I'm just going to go agree. By the way, just on that topic, I've played around with ANCAP and libertarian a lot over the last few decades. I've basically come to the decision of late that we're going to have some form of governance. You live in an apartment building, you have a form of governance. It's a HOA, or it's called strata in other countries. But the way it should work is that only the taxpayers should get a vote. If you live in if you're a tenant in an apartment building, or sorry, condominium building here in America, if you're a tenant but you're not the landlord, you don't own the unit, then you don't get a vote, and it's for obvious reasons. If you're a tenant in an apartment in a condominium building, it's like, let's put a water slide on the roof. Let's put a helipad next to it in case I get a helicopter one day. You're not the one paying for it, so who cares? Only the people who are paying for stuff, the people who they're putting in the money, and they decide how that money is spent. They're the only ones who should have a voice in how that money is spent. So for that reason, only taxpayers should get a vote. And I guess that is different to ANCAP. So I guess I'm back to libertarian these days. Question 37. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. No, disagree with that. No authority should be left unquestioned. That's fair. You should question everything. A hierarchical state is best. I don't really know there's an alternative to a hierarchical state. And so I guess I'm going to strongly agree. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. So if it is wrong, that is in the opinion of the government, obviously. So the question is, does the government lead the people, or do the people lead the government? And it has to be that the people lead the government. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion. Strongly disagree. The question is, who should get to vote? And not everybody should get the vote. As I said earlier, only the people putting in the money. Their opinion is the only one that matters. The stronger the leadership, the better. Strong leadership is good. Again, there's no comparison. You'd rather strong leaders than weak leaders, but I'd rather a weak libertarian leader than a strong communist leader. So anyway, democracy is more than a decision-making process. What foo-foo fluff is that nonsense? No, it is just a decision-making process. Environmental regulations are essential. I'm going to say regulations. Yes, environmental regulations are essential. But a regulation could be as simple as if you pollute your neighbour's yard, you have an obligation to rectify it. You have to make them whole. That's basically, it comes down to you can't pollute your neighbour's air and water. And I think noise, I guess, would also come into that space. That doesn't mean, global warming bullshit or any of that nonsense. Environmental regulations are essential. I'm going to go agree because I strongly agree, but I don't think it's agreeing in the way that they're using it. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. Absolutely. Always has, always will. Children should be educated in religious or traditional values. I'm going to teach my children things like manners and saying please and thank you. And so yes, they should be. But again, the should implies being done by the state. So I'm going to go strongly agree, but if it means by the state, then it strongly disagree. Traditions are of no value on their own. That's a foo-foo sentence. I'm going to go neutral. Religion should play a role in government. No, religion should not. Let me think about this here. No, it shouldn't. Churches should be taxed. I can go back. Churches should be taxed the same way other institutions should be taxed. Yep, that's true. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats. No. It is important that we work as a united world to combat. No. Society was better many years ago than it is now. No, I don't think so. It is important that we maintain the traditions of our past. And I think, not to the exclusion of better ones coming along, but I think largely, especially if you're living in the West, your traditions, they are good and do yield good results. We want to test and experiment, small tests and small experiments to see if we can improve upon those. But they're good. It is important that we think in the long term beyond our lifespan. I think that's fair. I'm happy with that. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Yeah, but reason dictates that we maintain our culture. So yes, I yield to reason. So let's go strongly agree. Drug use should be legalized and decriminalized. Yes. Same-sex marriage should be legal. Yes. I don't think they should call it marriage. It should be called a union or something. But yeah, it should be legal. No cultures are superior to others. What a load of nonsense. Of course some cultures are superior to others. Take a look. We could be living in a mud hut in the 21st century or living in skyscrapers. Strongly disagree. No cultures are superior to others. Nonsense. Sex outside marriage is immoral. No, definitely not. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. Yes. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. I think a small agree on that. I'm not particularly passionate about the abortion issue. Abortion, it's absolutely black and white until it becomes 100% grey and worthless to discuss. The whole she has a right to do with her body thing is absolute nonsense. If the child was 6 months old and she lays it down in her basement and just chooses not to tell anyone and chooses not to feed it and it starves to death, male or female, whoever is responsible for that child at the time, that parent should go to jail. So we absolutely are comfortable telling people what they should do with their bodies when we deem that they are responsible for a child. So the only question is, when does life begin? If life has not begun when at the end of the first trimester or something, then telling a woman she can't have an abortion is as ridiculous as telling her what haircut she should have. When it becomes a child, then you have responsibilities. When does it become a child? You can ask 100 people and get 100 different answers, and it becomes so grey. Is it when there's a heartbeat? Is it when there's pulmonary activity? Is it when there's brain activity? Is it when you can see fingers and toes? Is it at conception? Is it when it comes to the birth canal? It becomes so 100% grey that it's worthless to discuss. So I think in most cases, I think my gut is that, it's something, you're getting brain activity, you're getting pulmonary activity, you can kind of see toes and fingers well and truly in the first trimester. I'm thinking life begins in the first trimester somewhere. So most abortions should be prohibited in most cases. I'm going to go ahead and agree. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those without a valid reason. Disagree. Strongly disagree. I support no. Prostitution should be illegal. No. Maintaining family values is essential. There's a horrific result occurs when children are raised by one parent. So yeah, we're going to go and strongly agree with that. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. Of course. At all costs, there's your clue. Pursuing progress is good, whatever that means, but at all costs, that can be dangerous. Genetic modification is a force for good, even on humans. Genetic modification is a force for good, even on humans. I have not thought much about this topic, I have to be honest. I'm cool with people playing with it and experimenting with it largely. And if it yields unpleasant results, we always don't have to use the technology. We can go back. I'm going to go ahead and agree. We should open our borders to immigration. What a deceiving question. We should open our borders to immigration. Does that mean open borders and completely open immigration? Or does it mean we should... I think that's what it means. We should open our borders to immigration. No, we definitely should not do that. That's ridiculous. I have a big problem with the libertarian community who think, I've heard the argument, well, in a free society, free people should be able to go wherever they choose. That is complete and utter nonsense. In a free society, you can go wherever you are welcomed by the property owner. It's property rights. If I can't just walk into your yard or walk into your house, that's trespassing in a free society. So we can only allow people into our houses, into our property, into our HOAs, into our communities that we are shared owners of, if we choose to invite them and we think they are going to be beneficial to us. So absolutely not. We should open our borders to open immigration. No. That's not saying I'm not a fan of immigration at all, but as long as the people coming in serve us, then that's what we should do. Governments should be as concerned about foreign citizens as they are about those within their borders. Absolutely not. They have one obligation and one obligation only to their citizens. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. Under the law, absolutely. By other individuals, you can treat any individual however you want. Very ambiguous question. Under the law, yes. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. Only by government, by the law. Employers can discriminate based on whatever the hell they want. You can invite whoever the hell you want over for dinner. You don't have to invite for whatever reason. So I don't know what the question is trying to get at, so I'm going to have to go neutral on that. It is important that we further my group's goals above all others. My group, being Western society, has some great features. And I want Western culture to continue and be furthered. I don't want to see repressive and silly things furthered. But what about the generic group? If I was a member of whatever, some stupid culture that threw gays off buildings or something, then no, I would not advocate that group's goals being furthered just because it was my group. Again, I don't know where they're trying to go. So I'm going to have to say neutral on that one. Okay, where are we? On the economic axis, I'm capitalist, very much so, yes. This is a terrible axis. From equality to markets, free markets have produced more equality than any socialist crap could ever hope to. Markets are the closest approximation to equality we have yet come to. So this definition of this axis is silly. It should be markets at one end and centrally planned at the other. Diplomatic axis, nationalist, yes. World-focused, nation-focused, yes, I'm happy with that. I am a nationalist. Civil axis, liberty to authority. Yeah, see, there's a lot of questions that went the wrong way because I'm obviously way down here on the liberty scale. But where they've taken things out of context is they said, like, should we promote values, like traditional values? And I said yes. But the parent should be doing it, not the state. So on the civil axis, this has defined me incredibly poorly. I'm way down here on the liberty side. And a society axis, from tradition to progress. Well, that's just a silly axis. It doesn't mean anything. We should take the good traditions and leave the poor traditions behind. So if one is forward for forward's sake and one is stuck in the past for stuck in the past's sake, I guess being somewhere in the middle of those two ridiculous options is probably pretty fair. So my closest match is ultra-capitalism. Let's see. Ideologically matching is a work in progress. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I don't care about that. So ultra-capitalist. Okay, I'm happy to wear that title. I would think libertarian would be a better title. But I think because of this civil axis, they wouldn't be able to give me a libertarian title. So, okay. Well, that's me, guys. Hope you found that interesting. Why don't you go ahead and take the test yourself if you thought it was fun. I'll leave the link in the description. And post your results below. I'd love to see where you guys are at. Take care. Bye-bye.